I'm Jerry Mays. I'm the Executive Director at the Education Service Center Region 12 in Waco is my day job. But the reason I'm here is because I love AESA and have had the opportunity to go through their executive service on their executive council and was fortunate enough this year to become the president of AESA.
Hey.
So we're heart and soul about the role of education service agencies across the nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy you guys are here, and thank you for the opportunity to sit down for a minute.
Oh, absolutely. That's what. It's awesome to. I'm glad that you were. I don't know if you were elected, chosen, voluntold, however you ended up running. This particular aspect of the program. I'm very thankful that you guys put on an awesome show and thank you so much for having us here. And I've actually been coming to AESA for probably, 7 or 8 years now, and we've been able to do this for a couple of years, and appreciated the stuff that you were talking about during the lunchtime. And
it's our pleasure.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And I appreciate you guys being here and doing this because, I love to get a chance to tell our story.
Yes.
That's the key.
We are all educators at heart. We come to this job through all sorts of different avenues. I was very traditional, classroom teacher, and became the principal and then the superintendent. And one day I got an opportunity to work at a service agency, and so here I am.
Yeah.
And but all the way, every day we get up in the morning feeling like it's time for us to help children that day.
Yeah.
Now, we're not the ones in the classroom, but the exciting role that ESAs get to play is that we are removed from the classroom and from the campus to the point where a superintendent or principal can contact me and say, here's what we really need, or we need some help identifying where our real professional development needs are. Let's just take that as an example. So we have the expertise and the distance to do some objective third-party analysis, do the R&D, if you will. Many school districts do not have the staff to do their own research and development in front of an initiative.
Sure.
So those kinds of things, and then the implementation, the ongoing PD, because usually what happens, I was a superintendent in 2 school districts, so I know that I just told you I was in 2 school districts. We move around.
Right.
But the service center doesn't, and the relationship with that local board and that community and that service agency stays in place. And so we have a lot of ownership with the districts that we serve. Region 12 in Waco, we serve 75 traditional school districts and 10 charters.
Oh, yeah.
And they range in size from 100 up to about 45,000. So there's just a widely diverse set of needs and opportunities, and we're happy to be a part of that. We feel like we make a great difference for children by making the schools they attend better places.
The last 2 years, I'm still in a school district. I'm just partnered with Southwest Arkansas, and I work with them, and they're cooperative. Mm-hmm. And I've learned so much about educational service agencies. The one thing that always is really interesting to me is the services provided. It just runs the gamut. We just talked with a group that has a BOCES in New York that's handling alternative education for a plethora of schools. Mm-hmm. And a lot of school districts can't do that. Those school districts that have 100 to 200 kids, they need the help from the service center to take care of that business for them. And it's really interesting to meet how many educators are here, and this year especially, the retirees that come back that are still part of this organization and make it really strong.
That's so cool, Jeff, because this really does become a family. Mm-hmm. In the long run, we say that, and it sounds a little corny to say it, but it's just true. Mm-hmm. We've all been together a long time in a lot of different levels. Many of us knew each other as superintendents or classroom teachers, or then we got to know each other through the service agency business, and now we collectively do this work around the country for AESA. And it's a group that you enjoy being a part of. It's my favorite conference, favorite work that I do in the course of a year, because when you get these people together in the same place, good ideas will come from that. Mm-hmm. And the way school districts get served and the way children get served in their educational needs will improve as a result of that. So it's exciting. The changes in leadership, Joan spoke to that at lunch. It's an organization with a proud tradition too. tomorrow at lunch we'll introduce Peter Young.
Oh, yeah.
So many people know
Yeah.
Peter, but
Yeah.
Peter goes back to the very beginning, the very, very beginning, when Walt Turner was the first executive director. He and Peter worked together on that. You know, Peter was still the executive director of a service agency, but he was instrumental. He was one of the first handful of people who were charter members of this. So Peter's been with the organization all these 40 years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, you know, he's one of those great guys because he's a visionary, but he also sees the details. Like I said at lunch today, make sure we have chocolate cake.
Yes, that's right.
These things are important. These things matter.
That's right. That's right. Make sure there's chocolate on the table.
There has to be chocolate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he was instrumental in us starting this.
That's what I was just going to say.
Instrumental in us being here last year in New Orleans and being back this year.
We have that proud tradition and history of leadership. You know, Brian Talbot was there today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lee Warren was there today.
Yeah.
Others in the room. That everybody arrives at their leadership position at just the right time to do something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the right people will figure out what that is, and they'll make sure they do it well.
Yeah.
We've been the beneficiary of that over these 40 years, and now Joan Wade has arrived at just the right time.
Yes, yes.
You know, Joan is just the perfect person right now to take all the great things that have happened and move it forward to whatever that next level is.
Yep.
I tell people in leadership training all the time, you know, that organizations can be great, schools can be great, but everything that brought us to this point of greatness today are not necessarily the same set of things that will take us to greatness in the future.
Right.
We have to redefine ourselves every once in a while.
Right.
And and I like for that to be an intentional act in the organizations that I lead, so I like to see that happening at AESA with Joan, because we're just asking ourselves questions. The right questions about what does best look like moving forward.
Yeah, right.
And the AESA Foundation has done the same work. I was so honored to get to sit in on that and be a part of that redesign work and a part of the AESA redesign work, and how those two entities, and it's interesting because sometimes when entities have been staffed by, if you and I have been part of something for a long time, we've been a part of the decision making that came up to right now. Sometimes it's a little difficult to separate ourselves from that toward what might need to come in the future. And these people have just been brilliant with it.
Yeah.
I mean, guys that have been sitting in that chair for a long time have said, you know what, we need to take a look at that.
Yeah.
We need to let that move forward. We have to work on this.
Yeah.
But they have the institutional memory to say, okay, it's a good idea, but you might want to consider this. This is something we encountered earlier. Those kind of conversations.
Yes.
So it's very powerful. It's a very exciting time.
Yeah.
I could go on and on, obviously.
Well, it's very cool to be part of an organization where they want to move forward and yet have the experience of not really looking back, but at least looking over her shoulder and saying, okay, kind of like what you just were talking about, you know, okay, well, we got to watch this, or, well, we tried it this way, so you might want to try, you know, tweaking that a little bit, but also being open to just, new stuff. Like Jeff said, you know, Peter was instrumental in getting us here last year, and just he was open to the idea. It was like, well, we've never done anything like that before, so sure, why not? Let's see what happens. You know, and I think I've known Joan for a long time, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see her vision as it opens up and as it develops for where AESA is going to go.
But she said, and with us earlier, her vision is already, in its infancy right now. Mm-hmm. Just building. You can tell she waited for this conference to help, pull in more information and using it as her test bed. But that's what I find as an educator. This is my 25th year. So the educational power brokers are here. They're at this conference. Yeah. And the names that I've seen throughout my career, holy smokes. All these people are here. That's who's doing this session, or that's who's with this service agency. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive to me.
Well, and something that excites me about the future of the organization, because the people that are a part of this now are people who have a long, successful, rich history of doing this style of leadership, and the organization is growing. And will continue to grow. With that kind of mindset, everybody wants to be part of a team that's winning, right?
Right.
And so that speaks for itself out there, not in the sense of being boastful about AESA, but just because it's playing out well in schools and with ESAs around the country. And
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, kind of going back to something you had mentioned just real quickly. You had talked about the diversity of the districts that are in your area. So, to me, that's one of the most powerful parts of being, I'm with Southwest Arkansas Education Cooperative, that's what we call them in Arkansas, right? Same, it's ESA, it's the same thing. You have this mix of large schools and small schools and everything in between, and yet through the power of an ESA, we can leverage the same cooperative professional development. We can leverage cooperative purchasing, whatever the schools need, so that it benefits the large districts and the small districts equally. Everybody gets to play, basically. It's very, very cool.
that ability to create, we make ideas scalable for small districts. The economies of scale do not always exist for a small district, especially if they're a little remote. And we can help them overcome that in some significant ways.
Right.
And that, to me, that's just such exciting work. Some of my favorite districts are the ones that are the furthest away from anything. And to see how much they love that school and how the community rallies around it.
Yes.
And they're so committed to it and so loyal, and those children get such a high level of education because they take that really personal, small group approach to what they do.
Right.
We get to be part of that, as well as, and on the larger school, for us, our larger schools are WACO and Temple, Belton, Killeen is our largest one. Killeen serves Fort Hood, the largest Army installation in the world. So they have a completely different set of needs and expectations than one of my really small school districts out in the western part of the region might. But it all works. You just scale it differently. It's all the same work, just a different number of children with a different set of complexity sometimes.
Exactly. Well, and as you said at the very beginning, ultimately, it's all about the students. It's all about the kids. Everything that we're doing. So
I've done, I did all of those jobs in education, but every day when I get up in the morning, I'm still an educator. I'm still a teacher. I still think about that classroom and what it takes to make it work in there. Listening to Brad Wade's keynote today, it just reminded me of how much I don't know about the technology that children understand and what they're relating to. And it created a sense of urgency for me, and I think it did inside that room that, if we're really going to be about their future, we're going to have to hit the pace.
That's right. We're going to have to do some.
It's time to get to work.
That's right. Exactly.
The gang from ESDEC could stop by, and we were talking about being compliant. And I said, if you're compliant, you're behind.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got to be cutting edge every day, because the kids are coming in and going, I did that 3 months ago. Let me drop back and pass, because
ESDEC's is a good example of an organization that really strives every day to look forward, to make sure they're staying ahead of that curve. And I don't have all of that skill set, but what I know is how to hire people that do.
Right.
I have to have people that know how to think about that. So we're really looking for those 20-something, early 30s. Simply because they grew up with that mindset. They've been in the classroom 7, 8, 10 years. They have their game down, and they're the people who can go out there and train that better than I can.
Right.
And I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. That's just not the world I grew up in.
Right.
The first telephone that was issued to me by a school district was actually just a telephone.
Exactly.
And it was analog.
Right. Yes.
It was it was just a little brick kind of a thing with a keypad on it. And so lo and behold, now here we are.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that's talking about these different agencies, and that's where AESA is. It does a phenomenal job of, think of the things that you never would have, or maybe not never, who knows never, but most likely had not thought about implementing or hiring the 20 to 30 somethings had you not talked with other education service agencies around the country going, that's really cool what you guys are doing. I should probably be doing that over here too, or something similar, not necessarily the same thing, but still getting on that same mindset, on that same path forward.
I get asked sometimes, and it goes to what you just said. well, why is AESA important?
Yeah.
And that's why. It's that network.
Yep.
So that we can create a national group of what we're calling, Joan said today, affinity groups.
Right.
If there's a topic out there and you and I have great expertise in that area, our role is to create an opportunity for that dialogue to occur and for then there to be ways to make it actionable. How does it work? How do we get it implemented?
Yes.
And that's why it's important.
It is.
Because it's every district has its own DNA in different parts of the country responding to different things. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that has to really happen. Student, teacher, there has to be a learning, teachable moment there.
Right.
And so that's the role of AESA. It's more about that than anything else. It's why this conference is important.
Yep.
Getting these people together, because when I come here, I'll guarantee you, I already have some ideas that I'm going back and working on.
Yes,
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
And the things that Brad Wade said today at lunch stuck in my head, and it just reminded me that I do not necessarily know what young students, especially, how they're perceiving the way their knowledge gets delivered to them, how they learn things, and how they'll be willing to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're not careful, we're the old guys back in the film clip trying to figure out how to use a book. Which side do you open it from?
Yes, how do I do this? What?
Yeah, what if the letters disappear and all of that? So
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I've been in one session, I've been in 10 here, where 4 or 5 people around me go, I've got to get this person into my school district's my service center. Is that it's all about sharing and helping everyone. That's what AESA is. That it's that one time the family gets back together and shows pictures and catches back up. But it's my second year, but I agree. I have so many friends here now that I made last year that have helped me throughout the year. It's great stuff.
The national network is really an awesome thing, and we find ourselves working together on grant projects. I mean, you name it. Any way that there can be overlaps, the relationships that grow out of this. That's why AESA is important. It's why this conference is. It's why I've been so committed to it. I think it's some of the most important work that I do. And I introduced my board today because they really are heart and soul about this work. And yes, they expect me to take care of Region 12 in Waco first and make sure we have a top flight organization there. But they also get it that we need to be sharing that with others around the country and making those opportunities available for children wherever children need to be educated.